vast majority of our Ford Galaxy are equipped with diesel engines. 1.8C 100 horsepower, FFWA, 1.8C 125 horsepower, QYWA. Before restyling, the base diesel engine was the old 1.8-liter turbo engine. This is the only diesel with original Ford pedigree. Its history dates back to the 1980s. This miracle engine has a cast-iron cylinder head with one camshaft and 2 valves per cylinder. Despite such an archaic design, it has common rail injection and an insidious timing drive with 2 toothed belts. Moreover, the lower toothed belt on such engines appeared in October 2007 and took the place of a cassette with 2 parallel roller chains, 1,198,056. The lower timing belt, 1,562,244 sprayed with oil, i.e. the wet belt on Ford engines appeared precisely on the 1.8 TDCi engine several years before the appearance of small displacement EcoBoosts. It is sad that sometimes owners do not know about the existence of such a wet belt in a diesel engine, so after 200,000 kilometers the engine often died precisely because of the breakage of such a hidden belt. Well, in general, the 1.8 TDCi engine has its fans, because it has no other special weak points. Although the Siemens fuel system requires careful maintenance, and piezo injectors, although very durable, are expensive to repair. 2.0C KLWA, TYWA 115 horsepower 2.0C AZWC, UKWA 136 horsepower 2.0C QXWC UFWA QXWA, QXWB 140 horsepower 2.0C TXWA 163 horsepower 2.2C QXWA Q4BA 175 horsepower 2.2C, KNWA 200 horsepower. Most often this minivan can be found with a 2-liter turbodiesel. This engine, like all other diesel engines available for the Galaxy, is of French origin. This is the good old DW10C from Peugeot/Citroën. The 2.2-liter engine is its closest relative. In the original it is called DW12. 2-liter engines are mainly equipped with a Delphi fuel system. Siemens is less common. The 2.2-liter engines use a Bosch fuel system with piezo injectors, on 2-liter diesel engines with power up to 140 horsepower. The turbine has variable geometry with a vacuum actuator. Often the turbine is underinflated due to a malfunction of the electric vacuum valve, 701,771,010, 9,652,997,580, or due to a burst pipe after the intercooler. All the inflated air simply escapes from the crack. Even on Siemens injectors, with mileages of more than 200,000 kilometers, the return fittings begin to leak. They need to be unscrewed and the O-rings, FOOVPO1003, replaced. If a lot of oil appears in the intake manifold, then, among other things, it is worth replacing the membrane in the valve of the crankcase ventilation system. The membrane is located in the valve cover under the round hatch. A non-original membrane, HR 1,461,731, is suitable as a replacement. The timing drive of 2 and 2.2-liter turbodiesels uses a timing belt, but both camshafts are connected to each other by a short roller chain. There are no problems with this mechanism. Moreover, if the timing belt suddenly breaks at low speed, the engine will survive such a problem quite well. The valves will not bend, but the broken rockers and hydraulic compensators will have to be replaced. In general, French diesel engines are good and durable. 1.6C T1WA, T1WB 115 horsepower. After restyling, the German 1.8-liter turbodiesel was replaced with a 1.6-liter French one. This is a very common engine with the designation DV6 in its later modification with an 8-valve cylinder head. In a nutshell, this is a great motor. It may be a little weak for a full-size European minivan, but it is very reliable. 2.0 AOWB, TBWA, TBWB, AOWA 145 horsepower. 2.3 SEWA 160 horsepower. The share of petrol Galaxy is minimal. Usually there are pre-styling examples with naturally aspirated petrol 4s of 2.0 and 2.3 liters. We have detailed reviews of these engines on our channel. In principle, they are very simple and unpretentious. But owners should know about the flaps in their intake manifolds and that the timing chains are ready to start rattling after a run of 250,000 kilometers, although there are cases of this chain jumping and breaking even at runs of about 150,000 kilometers. And even when saving motor oil, these engines readily begin to consume it due to the presence of piston rings. By the way, literally every Ford with a gasoline engine has gone through the replacement of the submersible fuel pump module, 1,769,835. Its metal pins overheat and melt. Moreover, The pins in the socket on the side of the wiring harness also burn out. New submersible pumps range from $90 to over $400 for a full factory equivalent. By the way, in the floor of the Galaxy, like other Ford models, there is no hatch for access to the fuel pump. According to the instructions, you need to remove the tank. People simply cut out a hatch under the right seat of the middle row. 1.6 EcoBoost, JTWA, JTWB 160 horsepower. 2.0 EcoBoost, TNWA 200 horsepower. After restyling, the Ford Galaxy acquired completely new engines, turbocharged EcoBoosts. Minivans with such engines are very rare. Success in owning these engines depends on maintenance, quality of oil, and quality of gasoline. In the early years, pistons in these engines readily burst, and overheating occurred due to dirty radiators. If you take a Galaxy with EcoBoost, then only a well-maintained one with a documented history. AF21, Aisin TF80 SC6 Street automatic transmission. Ford Galaxy was equipped with a 6-speed Japanese automatic. This transmission comes standard with a 2.3-liter gasoline engine and is available with a 2-liter 140 horsepower turbodiesel. This is a pleasant, durable, and repairable unit that lasts more than 300,000 kilometers if a partial oil change is performed every 60,000 kilometers. Powershift 6 DCT 450 MPS6. After restyling, the Ford Galaxy switched to the Powershift transmission, namely its wet version 6 DCT 450. This unit usually runs about 250,000 kilometers. It needs to change a special oil, 1,490,761, and an external filter, 1,589,089, every 40,000 kilometers. You need to make sure that the front cover, 1,684,808, is dry and change it immediately, not sparing the amount of $200 to $500. Otherwise, the entire Powershift will be sent for overhaul. Most often, Ford Galaxy are found with manual transmissions. MTX75 5-speed manual transmission. The 1.8 TDCi and 2.0 Duratec engines come with a 5-speed MTX75 transmission. It often leaks through the seals. There is no need to ignore this. Change the seals, add or completely drain the oil. MMT6 6-speed manual transmission. M66 6-speed manual transmission. 6-speed works with other motors. Manual gearboxes. Usually no questions arise for them. All Galaxy manual and Powershift versions are equipped with dual-mass flywheels. Such flywheels usually last well over 250,000 kilometers, and when replaced, you will have to pay up to $900 just for the DMM itself. Ford Galaxy power unit supports serve well, more than 200,000 kilometers. The right hydraulic mounts, 1,844,608 and 1,723,144, look the same for gasoline and diesel engines, but are designed for different loads. They sag over time and cost from $80 to $300, and a torn damper of the lower gearbox support, 1,486,221 or 1,434,853, leads to shocks when shifting gears. The expansion tank of the cooling system contains 2 tubes. If handled carelessly, they break, because they themselves are fragile and tough. Be careful with them. Let's return to rust again. These cars slowly rust the hood from the inside along the rear edge, along the sealant strip. We can say that corrosion in this place is an indicator of the condition of the rest of the body. Along the bottom, along the right threshold, there are tubes to the rear evaporator of the air conditioner. They enter the cabin in the rear overhang on the left side. On many pre-restyling Galaxy, these tubes were rotten. They were often replaced with rubber hoses. The steering rack on many Galaxy began to play, knock, and even vibrate due to the fact that its regulating fluoroplastic cracker ceased to press it normally against the steering shaft. This occurs due to the fact that the crack and the spring are clamped with a plastic plug. Over time, its thread simply breaks off. To replace the plastic plug, enthusiasts have released a steel plug, FO228 nuts. To screw it in instead of the standard plastic one, you need to either lower the subframe or unscrew the rail from it and lift it, because the plug itself looks into the subframe, so it is impossible to get to it with a tool. The Ford Galaxy suspension is unified with the Mondia suspension and serves very well, i.e. long and reliable. The original front stabilizer rods, 1,377,849, last up to 100,000 kilometers, but today they cost $70. And replacements cost from $7 to $25. The steering tips are rather weak, 1,433,273, i.e. they serve even less than good stabilizer links. Non-original tips do not cost more than $35, while original ones cost more than $120. The original front suspension arms, 1,507,181, are made of steel and can last more than 200,000 kilometers before replacement. Replacements cost between $70 and $150, while the original costs $300. The original rear silent blocks of the levers are sold separately for $100 to $150, $1,888,630. Substitutes are much cheaper, from $20 to $50. You can use non-original ball joints. They can be installed with 3 screws. Rear suspension parts have to be updated after 200,000 kilometers. Here you can buy a wishbone silent block separately, from $15 to $35, or about $80 for the original. $1,865,033. Non-original silent blocks for all wishbones cost from $5 to $20 apiece. The lowest spring-loaded arm, $1,469,125, costs $50 to $200 assembled. A good quality upper bone pull, $1,426,770, costs up to $30, and the original is almost 3 times more expensive. The original upper curved lever, $1,509,831, is terribly expensive, more than $400. Its analogs cost less than $30. Front wheel bearings, $1,437,643, cost between $70 and $180. Rear wheel bearings sometimes need to be replaced after reaching 200,000 kilometers. They cost from $70 to $400 for the original, $1,778,502. The body of the Galaxy minivan is galvanized, but this does not prevent local corrosion in the long term. But let's start with the fact that often the paint peels off on the front and rear fenders along the joints with the bumpers. Often a dozen chips from stones are present on the sills near the rear wheel arches. The edges of the arches themselves also become red over time, and later the paint in this area begins to swell. Unpleasant spots of corrosion also appear in the wheel arches behind the lockers in the area of the upper shock absorber mounts. On the bottom of the niche for the fuel tank and the area around the niche in the rear overhang often looks scary. The windshield of the Galaxy is almost a consumable item, especially if the car drives a lot on highways and ring roads. The pebbles bombarding it easily leave chips and cracks. The minivan-style doors are huge and heavy, so over time the hinges sag, but can be adjusted. The tailgate on many Galaxies also sag, which can be seen by the gaps along the outline of the lamps. However, there is a more serious problem here. The hinges are attached from the inside to the roof panel. In this hidden area, the metal bends and even tears around the bolt holes. This problem can be corrected by adding preformed backing plates. Although more often they simply add washers under pairs of outer bolts, i.e. bolts from the side of the trunk lid, not the roof. If the trunk door vibrates, you will have to replace the thrust buffers, $1,437,707 and $1,437,708. They are located in the trunk opening just below the lights and seriously cracked with age. On the door itself there are stops adjacent to the buffers in the closed position of the door. They are plastic, $1,524,372, and usually do not require replacement. Over time, after rain or after washing, signs of wetness appear on the headliner. Water seeps into the interior through crack sealant under the molding fastenings located in the gutters on the roof. A crack also appears at the junction of the side and top body panels in the trunk opening of the rear door. This joint extends from the gutters into the trunk opening. These areas need to be resealed. On pre-restyling Galaxy, the rear wiper arm is not covered with plastic. Over time, black coating falls off from it. It can be replaced with a leash from Peugeot 307, 6429.T1. The original or an analog costs $15 to $20. It will look exactly like on this restyled car. With age, standard age-related diseases occur with headlights, clouding of the lampshades and burnout of lens reflectors in xenon optics. In rich trim levels, the Ford Galaxy is equipped with a servo drive for folding mirrors. Usually these mechanisms get stuck and simply need additional lubrication. But to do this, it is better to disassemble the mirror housings, get to the gearbox and lubricate it. Less often, the electric motor fails or even the Silumen mirror bracket breaks. The condition of the Ford Galaxy interior reflects the intensity and care of use. Anything painted silver or covered with black varnish will inevitably be scratched, especially silver inserts on door handles. The metallic decor on the steering wheel is slowly swelling. Today, such things appear in pre-restyling Galaxy, and in such newer cars the interior looks more pleasant. Inoperative buttons for heating the front seats can be cleaned, dirt accumulates in the contact group. You can also buy new non-original ones from China. A pencil case with a hinged lid at the top of the center console sometimes disappoints because the spring axis breaks, which lifts the lid up when pressed. The parking brake lever on these minivans is sometimes surprising in that it cannot be released. The reason is a broken cable from the lock button. Even in the field, you can disassemble the console starting from the rear to get to the lever lock and release it. You can select and make the cable yourself. The release button in the automatic transmission selector breaks off. The button usually continues to hold on flimsily, but the lever moves freely, i.e. without being fixed in their positions. A new handle, or rather the selector knob, can be bought in China and replaced. Although there is another option with gluing its fasteners, at high mileage, the interior fan may hum, squeak, or simply jam. It's located inside the center console, but it's not too difficult to reach. A new fan costs between $40 and $300 for the original, $1,716,612. And if the stove doesn't heat up like before, then most likely its stove is clogged. This radiator is also located in the depths of the center console, but at floor level. At high mileage, the instrument panel may literally go dark, and its arrows will stop working. This problem is solved by soldering the contacts on its circuit board. Professionals can do it in a couple of hours, including removing and installing the